The date is June 6, 2013. Deep inside the ultra-secure headquarters of the National Security Agency in Fort Meade, Maryland, every classified monitor suddenly turns blood red. A top-secret slide, previously seen by only a handful of senior intelligence directors, flashes across the screens with a chilling realization. The program known as PRISM has just been leaked to the global press. This wasn't just any leak. It was a massive, unprecedented breach, exposing exactly how tech titans, companies like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple, were secretly feeding the private data of their users directly to the United States government. Just one day prior, an equally devastating revelation had hit the newsstands. The NSA was systematically logging the metadata of every single Verizon phone call made within the United States. 120 million ordinary American citizens were being tracked, monitored, and logged as if they were criminal suspects in a sprawling, invisible dragnet. The world's most powerful, secretive, and technologically advanced spy agency, boasting a $10 billion annual budget and a workforce of 30,000 highly vetted employees, had just been completely exposed. And the source of this catastrophic breach was not a foreign intelligence agency, a team of elite hackers, or a high-ranking general. It was just one person. A 29-year-old IT contractor who single-handedly forced the United States government to publicly admit that it had lied to 300 million Americans. 7 years later, a federal court would look at the evidence this young man provided and declare the NSA's entire domestic phone metadata operation definitively illegal. The judge's official verdict was scathing. The intelligence chiefs who had defended the program under oath were not telling the truth. But how exactly did a junior high school dropout IT guy gain unfettered access to the absolute crown jewels of American intelligence? And why did he choose to risk his life, his freedom, and his future to tell the public the truth? The answer to that question begins 3 months earlier, in a brightly lit, windowless room in Hawaii. Edward Snowden is a contractor for Booz Allen Hamilton. He is exactly the kind of guy you would pass in a sterile government hallway without giving a second glance. And that quiet invisibility is exactly why nobody noticed what he was quietly doing in the shadows of the network. Every single morning, Snowden badges into his windowless office, types his administrative passwords, and sits back to watch the intimate digital lives of millions flow across his dual monitors. He isn't just looking at anonymous metadata or a list of phone numbers. Because of his elite system privileges, he can see the actual content of the communications. He can read personal emails, intercept real-time chat conversations, see Amazon purchase histories, and track Google searches made in the dead of night. That embarrassing, highly personal medical question you typed into a search bar and immediately deleted? It is all there, captured and archived in the servers he maintains. As he digs deeper into the classified intranet, he discovers PowerPoint presentations so highly restricted that the vast majority of the United States Congress doesn't even know they exist. One presentation, boldly titled PRISM, explicitly lists every major Silicon Valley tech giant you trust, with your personal information as an active data provider to the agency. Another highly classified diagram, labeled Upstream, visually demonstrates how the NSA is literally splicing into the massive undersea fiber optic internet cables that connect continents, indiscriminately copying absolutely everything that flows through them. But the specific software tool that truly makes Snowden's blood run cold is a program called X-Keyscore. The classified training manual for the software blatantly brags that it captures nearly everything a typical user does on the internet. Do you want to know exactly what your ex-girlfriend or a political rival is doing online? An analyst simply types in her email address and hits enter. Boom. Instant, retroactive access to her entire digital life, her browsing history, her private messages, and her document drafts. And the most terrifying part? No legal warrant is required. 3 weeks earlier, in March of 2013, Snowden watched a televised event that fundamentally shattered his worldview and catalyzed his decision. James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, was seated before the Senate Intelligence Committee. A senator looked Clapper directly in the eye and asked a very clear, unambiguous question. Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans? Sitting under oath, looking at the cameras, Director Clapper answered firmly, "No, sir," not wittingly. Sitting in his office in Hawaii, Snowden stared blankly at his computer screen. He was looking at absolute, undeniable, cryptographic proof that the Director of National Intelligence had just committed blatant perjury before the United States Senate and the American public. The NSA wasn't just collecting data on some Americans, it was actively collecting data on absolutely everyone. Your calls, your text messages, your cell tower location data, all of it was being swept up and stored in massive, heavily cooled data centers in the Utah desert, searchable forever by anonymous analysts. Night after night, Snowden finds himself unable to sleep. The weight of the secret is crushing him. He has sworn a solemn oath to protect classified information. He has signed strict non-disclosure agreements that could easily put him in a federal penitentiary for decades, just for telling his girlfriend what he does at work. But what he is witnessing on his monitors feels exactly like watching a massive constitutional crime taking place in slow motion. The stated mission of the NSA is to protect America from dangerous foreign threats. Instead, the agency has secretly inverted its mandate, treating every single American citizen as if they were a potential threat requiring constant monitoring. The thought that finally breaks his silence is surprisingly personal and simple. He wonders what will happen if his young nephew grows up in this new world. A world where every text message sent in anger, every phone call, every foolish mistake made in youth is quietly recorded and stored forever by a faceless bureaucracy. A world where the government inherently knows more about your daily habits and private thoughts than you can even remember about yourself. By late May, the Hawaiian paradise outside his office feels like a suffocating prison. Snowden makes a definitive, irreversible decision that will either make him a global hero or a reviled traitor. He begins methodically transferring tens of thousands of classified documents onto encrypted micro SD cards and thumb drives. He does not copy files randomly. He curates them carefully. Each specific file is chosen to prove one undeniable fact to the public. Your government is lying to you about the extent of its power. But two terrifying questions haunt his sleepless nights. First, who in the mainstream media would ever believe a nobody IT contractor over the unified voice of the entire United States intelligence community? And second, even if he managed to convince someone to publish the truth, would the heavily distracted American public actually care enough to do something about it? 4 months before the world fundamentally changes, Snowden sends his very first encrypted email. He creates a highly anonymous digital identity and reaches out to Laura Poitras, a fierce, independent documentary filmmaker who is already intimately familiar with government surveillance. His initial message is cryptic and cautious. "I have something you need to see." Poitras almost deletes the email immediately. In her line of work, she frequently encounters paranoid conspiracy theorists claiming to possess proof of grand government secrets. But something about the extreme technical sophistication of the sender's encryption methods catches her attention. This anonymous person knows things, real, highly classified things about operational security and encryption protocols that most elite hackers don't even understand. Next, Snowden reaches out to Glenn Greenwald, an abrasive, brilliant journalist writing for The Guardian, who covers civil liberties as if he is personally offended by government overreach. But there is a massive logistical problem. Greenwald is famously terrible with technology and can barely manage his basic email, let alone set up PGP encryption keys. So, what does a desperate, highly trained whistleblower do? Snowden literally records a step-by-step video tutorial, essentially encryption for dummies, and sends it anonymously to Greenwald to teach him how to communicate securely. For weeks, nothing happens. Greenwald completely ignores the complex videos, finding the process too complicated and too much of a hassle to bother with for an anonymous source. It isn't until Poitras personally calls Greenwald and urges him to pay attention that the gears begin to turn. She tells him, "You need to take this seriously. This source is real, and the data is explosive." By late May, the three of them finally agree to meet. But where do you hold a meeting to discuss stealing the NSA's deepest secrets? Snowden chooses Hong Kong, a bustling, chaotic legal twilight zone floating somewhere between the jurisdiction of China and the reach of the West. He tells his longtime girlfriend, Lindsay Mills, that he is going on a routine, short-notice business trip. He kisses her goodbye, carrying the agonizing knowledge that he will almost certainly never see her again. On May 20th, 2013, Edward Snowden boards a commercial flight carrying 4 heavily encrypted laptops and one utterly ridiculous prop to serve as a recognition signal: a Rubik's Cube. He had messaged Greenwald earlier, stating, "You will recognize me in the lobby. I will be the one holding a Rubik's Cube." It sounded like a cliché straight out of a cheap Cold War spy novel. On June 3rd, in the busy lobby of the Mira Hotel in Hong Kong, Greenwald spots a kid. Because, in Greenwald's eyes, that is exactly what Snowden looks like: a pale, nervous kid fiddling with a plastic puzzle toy. Greenwald is momentarily deeply disappointed. He was expecting a hardened, cynical intelligence veteran who looked like he had seen the darkest corners of the deep state. This guy looked like the teenager who comes to your office to fix a jammed printer. But when they finally retreat to the absolute privacy of room 1014, that printer-fixing kid opens his laptop, enters a string of complex passwords, and shows the veteran journalists the impossible: a secret court order from April of 2013 mandating that Verizon must hand over the daily phone records of all its customers directly to the NSA. Not some, all. Every single call you have made since 2006 stored in a searchable database. Greenwald's hands begin to physically shake as he reads it. This was it, the holy grail of civil liberties reporting. Absolute, undeniable proof that the United States government is continuously spying on everyone. The next files he opens are the PRISM presentation slides. The logos of Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Apple, every massive tech corporation that publicly swears your data is sacred and private, are all arranged neatly under top-secret government classification stamps. They are all active partners in mass, warrantless surveillance. That private Facebook message you sent to an ex-partner? The NSA has a copy. That angry Gmail draft you wrote venting about your boss and then deleted? They have that archived too. Then Snowden walks them through the Ustream collection program. This is where the architecture gets truly scary, he says, pulling up a complex network diagram. The documents prove that the NSA has physically tapped into the major fiber optic cables that serve as the physical backbone of the global internet. Every email that crosses the Atlantic Ocean, every Skype call that bounces off a satellite is being intercepted. They are copying all of it, storing it, and allowing analysts to search through it long after the fact. But the X-Keyscore program remains the ultimate nightmare scenario. One slide shows an NSA analyst's workstation where they have typed in someone's email address. Instantly, the system pulls up everything: emails, passwords, credit card numbers, private photos, and medical records. Any low-level analyst can do this, Snowden explains quietly. To anyone, there is no judicial oversight, there is no warrant required, and there's no audit trail. It is driven purely by an analyst's curiosity. For the next several days, the journalists work grueling 18-hour shifts inside the hotel room, meticulously verifying the complex technical documents and drafting stories that they know will detonate across the political landscape like precision bombs. Snowden, running on pure adrenaline and paranoia, barely sleeps. He knows with absolute certainty that the NSA's elite digital hunters are already mobilizing. Every single day he remains free in Hong Kong is borrowed time. After 5 days of frantic preparation, the first story is finally ready for publication. Greenwald's finger hovers nervously over the send button. He looks at Snowden and warns him that once this publishes, there is absolutely no going back. The most powerful intelligence agency in history will instantly know that their deepest architecture has been exposed, and they will come for the source with everything they have. Snowden looks back without hesitation and says, "Do it. Click." In 12 hours, the world will wake up to undeniable documentary proof that George Orwell's dystopian vision in 1984 was in fact incredibly optimistic. But will anyone even care? And when the NSA realizes what happened, how long before they find the source? On June 5, 2013, The Guardian's website crashes from unprecedented traffic. The bold headline reads, "NSA collecting phone records of millions of Verizon customers daily." Within minutes, every major news network breaks into their regular programming. CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC are all broadcasting the exact same classified court document on their screens, all asking the same stunned question: is this unprecedented surveillance even legal? On June 6, the PRISM story drops like a nuclear bomb. The companies you trust with everything are revealed as complicit partners in mass surveillance. Mark Zuckerberg immediately releases a statement claiming, "We have never heard of PRISM." But the leaked NSA documents say otherwise. Someone is lying, and everyone knows it isn't Snowden. James Clapper, the director of national intelligence who had lied to Congress, goes on national television looking haggard. He calls the leaks extremely damaging to national security. When pressed about his false testimony under oath, he fumbles, stating awkwardly, "I responded in what I thought was the most truthful, or least untruthful manner." General Keith Alexander, the powerful director of the NSA, testifies before Congress, sweating through his uniform, insisting these programs stopped 54 terrorist attacks. Investigative reporters immediately fact-check this. The real number? 0. The phone dragnet never stopped a single imminent attack. Not one. Meanwhile, more leaks surface daily. The Boundless Informant documents reveal a tool showing the NSA collected 3 billion pieces of intelligence from United States computer networks in 1 month alone. Then comes international fury. German Chancellor Angela Merkel discovers the NSA tapped her personal cell phone. Brazil's president finds out her private emails were intercepted. 35 world leaders, allies, not enemies, have been under constant American surveillance. Diplomatic relationships that took decades to build crumble in days. On June 9, 2013, the biggest twist yet, Snowden reveals his identity in a video interview that will be watched over 50 million times. He sits in his Hong Kong hotel room, calm as a lake, and declares, "I am Edward Snowden. I am 29 years old. I worked for the NSA. I am the source." The internet explodes. Snowden's name trends worldwide. Half of Twitter calls him a hero, while the other half demands he be hanged for treason. News anchors can't believe it. This kid, this nobody, just declared war on the most powerful surveillance apparatus ever built. Within hours, the United States charges him under the Espionage Act. If convicted, he faces decades in a supermax prison, or potentially the death penalty. In Hong Kong, the Mira Hotel is surrounded by journalists and intelligence agents. Snowden checks out, disappears into a safe house, and the U.S. government pressures Hong Kong to arrest him. Hong Kong stalls, claiming paperwork issues. Behind closed doors, China is making complex calculations. What is more valuable, holding one whistleblower or embarrassing America? But time is running out. Every hour Snowden stays free makes the U.S. look weaker. On June 23, 2013, among hundreds of passengers boarding Aeroflot flight SU-213 to Moscow, one man carries no luggage, except fear. Edward Snowden, holding an American passport that will be valid for less than 3 hours, walks past security cameras that definitely recognize his face. The U.S. State Department screams at Hong Kong authorities to stop the plane. Hong Kong officials coolly respond, "What plane? We have paperwork problems." China has just given America the middle finger. The plane takes off. Snowden is airborne, belonging to no country, suspended in international airspace, exactly where he needs to be. The plan is brilliant in its simplicity. Fly to Moscow, stay in the international transit zone, and catch a connecting flight to a country without an extradition treaty. But this plan assumes the US government will play by the rules. It does not. The moment Snowden lands in Moscow, the US cancels his passport. He is now legally stateless, a person who does not exist. He cannot enter Russia, he cannot leave, and his credit cards are frozen. For 40 days, Snowden lives in the airport transit lounge, sleeping on chairs designed to prevent sleeping, and eating vending machine food. Meanwhile, the world's only superpower pulls every string, threatening every ally, just to grab one man. On July 2nd, in an unprecedented move, European nations forced down the presidential plane of Bolivia, carrying President Evo Morales simply because of a rumor Snowden might be on board. They searched the plane like common criminals, finding nothing but a humiliated president of a sovereign nation. On August 1, 2013, the final plot twist happens. Russia grants Snowden temporary political asylum, not because Putin loves whistleblowers, but because embarrassing America is worth more than American friendship. Snowden finally walks out of the airport into a country he never planned to live in. The United States goes ballistic, labeling him a Russian agent. But he isn't. He's just a guy who ran out of airports. Russia is his only option. The alternative is a black site prison. He trades his entire existence, his career, and his ability to ever return home for one thing: the truth. Was it worth it? And what happens when the world's most powerful intelligence agency decides to make an example of someone? The aftermath splits into two realities. In one, Snowden is a traitor who betrayed his country. In the other, he is the Paul Revere of the digital age, warning that the surveillance state is already here. But facts do not care about opinions. Within 6 months of Snowden's revelations, tech companies, terrified of losing customers, implement end-to-end encryption. WhatsApp makes messages unreadable to anyone except sender and receiver. Apple designs iPhones that even Apple cannot unlock. The NSA's own leaks just made mass surveillance infinitely harder. In June of 2015, Congress passes the USA Freedom Act, finally ending the NSA's bulk phone collection program. International privacy laws begin to tighten, with the EU introducing massive fines for privacy violations. Meanwhile, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit definitively rules that the NSA's phone program was always illegal. Today, Edward Snowden lives somewhere in Moscow. He has a Russian wife, a child, and citizenship he never wanted. He appears via encrypted video link at conferences, never charging a fee, still believing he did the right thing. He cannot come home without facing life in prison. The question isn't whether Snowden is a hero or a traitor. The question is, do you possess more privacy today because of what he decided to do in that hotel room? The world has changed forever, and the digital secrets of the NSA are now irrevocably out in the open.